little Miami, huh? What's up, Moose?
What's going on, Keith? How you doing, buddy?
I am good.
Welcome back after
Yeah.
holiday off yesterday. How's everything?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, a couple of days off. It was enjoyed. Actually, I worked all day yesterday, but yeah. Yes. It's Moose and Keith. It's Better Sports Network. Take you up until noon Eastern time. He is Mark Malusis. He's looking quite dapper. He's ready for the finals in hockey and in basketball, right? That's why you dressed up?
Yeah. Well, who doesn't like to look sharp, right?
Yeah.
You look good as well. I mean,
I'm
and
just
now
wearing
we
an Under
finally
Armour
have it.
t-shirt, you know.
Now we finally have it all set up. Thursday night, we're going to get Heat and Nuggets. Game one's going to be out in Denver. Then you have a break before game two. That'll be on Sunday for game two of the NBA Finals. But Miami is through after what was a daylight victory last night in Boston, winning that game going away 103-84. There were no late game heroics. It was not a particularly good basketball game unless you were a Heat fan. It was really a lot of bad basketball, bad offense, and bricking shots left and right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to get into it, but congratulations to the Miami Heat. Just this, second 8 seed ever to make it to the NBA Finals. They're there, and they dispatched the 2 seed, the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics were close, and they were a heavy favorite going into the game last night of setting a little history in the NBA and coming back from 0-3 down to win a series. Unfortunately, they played Tatum was hurt, obviously, but they played an awful game.
So I thought everything changed, obviously, on the first offensive possession for the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum twisting that ankle. You saw it was bad. He was grimacing throughout the entire first quarter. Didn't play the final, 4 minutes, and I think it was 51 seconds of the first quarter. So I'm sitting there watching with Austin and Alex, my two boys. And when Tatum got hurt, Austin right away goes, yeah, Celtics are done, huh? And I go, if he's limping around, there's no way the Celtics are winning this game. Now, listen, Jimmy Butler never looked 100% healthy throughout this entire series as well, even though he averaged over 25 points a game, whatever it was. The Celtics played poorly. The Celtics just got out-coached, outmanned, outplayed, like every sense of every out word that you can throw in front. That was what happened. The Miami Heat are not a better team per se than the Celtics talent-wise, but they were the better team for this series.
Yeah, and they march on to the NBA Finals. I mean, yes, I think everything changed, obviously, with the Tatum injury. But also, I mean, Boston's struggles from behind the arc, which were there and present in Game 6, a game where they shot 20% from behind the arc as a team. Last night, they shot 22%, 21%.
They missed their first 12 three-pointers.
Yeah, and they just kept on hoisting up 1-3 after another instead of, going out there and trying to attack the rim. And it's like Miami's defense was like, well, we're not going to go out and get in the way. And yes, I understand that, Miami's defense was fantastic, and it's a good point by Jay Cabasa. And, Spoelstra's an unbelievable head coach. I think he's the best head coach in the NBA for my money. And the job that he's done with this group is fantastic. And the Heat culture deal is real. I mean, there's no other way to cut it. And I was disappointed because, sitting there as a Knick fan watching Riley and Alonzo Mourning standing there stoically in the fourth quarter, watching that game as Miami has a double-digit lead, knowing that they're going to be going on to the NBA Finals, was utterly and completely annoying, to be honest with you. And how everything changed as it was brought up during the course of the broadcast 28 years ago when Pat Riley joined the Miami Heat, first as coach and then as, basically head of basketball operations or lead executive for Mickey Harrison and the Miami Heat program and organization. It's annoying, but it's real. I mean, there's no other way to cut it. It's real. Like when you look at Heat culture, when you look at performances, whether it be a Gabe Vincent, well, look at Caleb Martin, an undrafted guy. His brother's playing in the league. He was a guy that was picked off the scrap heap. Caleb Martin last night had himself a game, and we'll get into the Eastern Conference MVP voting here in just a second. And I just didn't understand what Reggie Miller was saying on the air. And then all of a sudden after the game, he votes for Jimmy Butler. Makes little to no sense whatsoever. I mean, it was almost like someone got into his ear and says, you know what, you need to vote for Jimmy Butler. I mean, it was just so strange hearing what Reggie Miller had to say. But, yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, as a native New Yorker, you're a native New Yorker. It was a kind of the lesser of two evils. Who do you root for? Do you root for Boston? Once again, that city, that fan base having another historical comeback, as the Red Sox did against the Yankees in 04, and then watching, the Boston Celtics do this to the Miami Heat. The fact that it was going to be the Miami Heat, the fact that I didn't have to hear about Heat culture, and the fact that I didn't have to hear about, Pat Riley and Spoelstra and all that, I would have dealt with Boston coming back from 3-0 down. Plus, I think it would have set up for probably a better NBA Finals, if Jason Tatum was 100% healthy. And obviously, he rolled that ankle, and he was going to be limited should the Celtics have gotten through that game last night, and they did not. But now you're just going to have it hit over your head time and time and time again about the culture of the Miami Heat. And it's well-deserved because it's real. I mean, it really is. To go through, to get through the play-in tournament after their, first play-in game against the Atlanta Hawks, and they were downright terrible, and trailing against the Chicago Bulls, and then to get into the 8th seed, to beat the Bucks in 5 games, have Tyler Hero get hurt in that series, and still dispatch of Milwaukee in just 5 games, then to get through the Knicks in 6, and now the Celtics, and facing the ultimate test. I mean, you want to talk about the fact of, going through the process to be leading this series 3-0, to lose 3 consecutive games, and then have a Game 7 on the road in Boston last night, and to win it the way that they did. Heat culture, if you're a Miami fan, you could scream about it to the high heavens because it is real.
My controversial take would be, as the, another resident New Yorker like you, I don't have the disdain for the Heat the way that you do. Listen, I'm not telling you that I root for the Miami Heat.
Oh, I can't stand it.
But when it comes to Boston or Miami, here's the reason why I would rather see the Heat win than the Celtics. Because every sport, I don't like the Boston teams. The other sports, the Dolphins don't bother me. I don't care about the Dolphins. Like, they don't do anything. Like the Marlins, yay, woohoo, whatever. Like any of the hockey teams, oh, yay. So like that city of Miami isn't something I root against. And listen, Boston is beautiful. I've taken my family to Boston. I've visited arenas there. I've seen gone for the Boston Tea Party and gone on the little boat and all that stuff. I've done all that. Boston's really cool. Great place to hang out. Good food, all that kind of stuff. I don't root for any of their teams in anything. Like literally nothing. I won't root for their teams. So for me, like if I had to choose, the lesser of the two evils for me personally is the Miami Heat. I like Jimmy Butler. Caleb Martin, pretty cool. He's going to get a lot of money now after being waived by the Charlotte Hornets a couple of years ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was. Gabe Vincent's kind of a cool story. Like there's cool stories on Miami. Boston, good. Kick them to the curb. I'm good. I don't need to talk about them anymore.
Yeah, I don't. You and I look at it differently. It's not a matter of hatred for the city or whatever. I just the Miami Heat bother me because of everything
Riley.
that Riley.
I know it's Pat Riley.
Yeah, I mean it's Pat Riley. So
if Riley wasn't there, you probably wouldn't care that much.
No, of course not.
Yeah,
I mean, but I mean that changes, and he changed everything for that entire organization.
Yeah.
So you envision like what it could have been, or what it potentially could have been here in New York with the Knicks, if they were able to see eye to eye at the time, and they didn't, and egos got in the way, and he ended up down in Miami, and it's been to the benefit of the NBA and benefit of the Miami Heat. You know, everything that goes along with it, whether it be Wade and Bosh and LeBron James, whether it be Wade and Shaquille O'Neal, now getting to the NBA Finals with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and their cast of merry men. You know, it's all of that. It's having, bringing in a guy and targeting a guy like Eric Spoelstra and having him go out and basically develop into and become the best head coach in the NBA and being strong with it, right? He wasn't backing down to the players' wills or anything like that. The only time he ever did that was, he threw Stan Van Gundy out the door when Shaq and Wade couldn't stand him. And so you look at all of those scenarios, and then now having Miami, listen, and I give him credit. It's a wonderful story. It's not like I'm going to poo-poo the story or say it's not a big deal. It's great. I mean, it really is. I thought we were going to get a better basketball game last night. I don't know how that game looks. I think it looks entirely different if Tatum doesn't suffer the ankle injury that he does, and the fact that he was so limited, and, you're leaning in on, Derek White to go be making plays for the Boston Celtics in the second half. Jaylen Brown was a turnover machine. I mean, for amazingly enough, I mean, a guy – The guy can't dribble the basketball. You're in the NBA, you're Jaylen Brown. You can't dribble the basketball. He had 8 turnovers last night. 8. I mean, Boston had 15 as a team. They shot, like in the 30s from the floor. They shot in the 20s from behind the arc. I mean, it's amazing that they only lost that game last night by 19 points. I mean, they could have lost that game by 30 or 40 points. And, the Tatum injury stunk. The game stunk. The Miami Heat went in there, though, and, whether Tatum was healthier or healthy or not, Miami was going to make that a game.
Yeah.
Like they just were. They're not the Philadelphia 76ers. They were going to respond. And, the betting market had it as, Celtics winning that game by daylight. And that's why Boston was just jacking up 1-3 after another early on in that game, because they were trying to make that game a margin game early on instead of playing within the game and being efficient offensively and being efficient defensively. And if they did all that, Boston had nothing to worry about because they were the better basketball team. But they decided that, we're going to try and just basically air raid you, and it didn't work. And here's the one thing, pressure's an amazing thing. Once those threes started not falling early for the Boston Celtics, you saw them start to play a little and force things, play a little tight as well. So Miami, the culture is real. Congratulations to Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat as they're going to be taking on Denver. That series gets going on Thursday night.
Yeah, I feel like the Boston Celtics in this series, they made adjustments. They didn't always make the correct adjustments. The Miami Heat would make adjustments, and they were the correct adjustments. I guess, even taking Kevin Love kind of out of the rotation over the last 2 games, they felt like that was the right move. He didn't have the speed to be able to stay with a lot of the Boston Celtics, and it worked yesterday with Caleb Martin back in the starting lineup and, playing major minutes, 23 points through the first 3 quarters. I just really, really love Caleb Martin. I enjoy watching him play, and I'm rooting for him to become something special. I would have loved to see him win the MVP. We could talk about that in a second. Let's hear from Jimmy Butler first on just everything that happened in this series.
We were sitting in a conference room in Miami, and I asked you what you thought you guys needed to get over the threshold. And you said, in part, you knew you could get it done. Why was that belief in that moment so strong? And what does it feel like to be right?
I just know why Coach Pat and Coach Spo wanted me to be here, and that's to compete at a high level and to win championships. I know that the group that they put around me at all times is going to give me an opportunity to do so. So I was always very, very confident in that. I work extremely hard with the team, with Brickley. I can score on Remy all day, every day, as I've posted on Instagram. So I'm just confident. I know the work that we all put into it, so I know what we're capable of. But nobody's satisfied. We haven't done anything. We don't play just to win the Eastern Conference. We play to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, there you have it from Jimmy Butler last night after the game, talking about the fact of, they are not self-satisfied. And he kept on telling you time and time again that they as an organization, when you take a look at the Miami Heat, they as a franchise, he felt very, very confident they were going to get the job done. And, they did last night, and Jimmy Butler was, named by a count of 5-4, I believe, he was named Eastern Conference Finals MVP over Caleb Martin, which I mentioned it earlier. Someone's got to explain to me, like, it's one thing if, Mark Jackson, leaving Nikola Jokic off of his MVP vote, which made little to no sense. And then you get the Reggie Miller as you're watching it last night, time and time and time again. Reggie Miller talking about Caleb Martin being the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. And then after the game, you find out that Reggie Miller voted for Jimmy Butler to be the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. Someone's got to, I need some sort of an explanation where the change of heart happened if you're Reggie Miller, because I'm not making it up. I mean, listen to it time and time again. I mean, every time he hit a shot, it was Reggie Miller saying cha-ching. He was talking about the fact that Caleb Martin's been the best player in the series for Miami. Yeah. That Caleb Martin is going to get paid. All of these things throughout the course of the game last night, and that he's been the most consistent player in the entire series. And then after the game, he votes for Jimmy Butler to be the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I don't understand that. That makes no sense. Like,
where did the disconnect happen?
Right, I don't get it. Like, if you're Reggie Miller, if you keep on telling me one guy's been clearly the best player for the Miami Heat and the most consistent player throughout the course of the series, and it's been Caleb Martin, how exactly do you vote for Jimmy Butler to be the MVP in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah, it was quite the bold statement. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. Reggie Miller was also the one that said that Tyler Hero is going to be more missed by the Miami Heat than Giannis, right? Was for the Bucks. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great statement too. Good job, Reggie. So Reggie Miller literally said this quote. He said that the best player and the most important player for the Miami Heat in this series has been Caleb Martin. Now, if you would have just turned around and said most important player, not best player, I want to give it to the best player. But Caleb Martin, I mean, I guess technically the stats were better for Jimmy Butler. And I guess technically you could say the teams were focusing, the opponent, the Celtics were focusing a little bit more on Jimmy Butler. But I was very confused by Reggie Miller voting for Jimmy Butler, yet hyping up to the high heavens how great Caleb Martin had been. How about Eric Spoelstra on making it to another NBA Finals?
I definitely noticed it after the Atlanta game, the next day in the film session, how badly this team wanted to keep this season going. And then I felt the exact same way yesterday when we met after our flight. Everybody got to get everything out of their system from the night before, and then we just focused on rallying around each other and focusing on the next task. And we have some incredible competitors in that locker room. They love the challenge. They love putting themselves out there in front of everybody, open to criticism, open to everything, but to compete for it. And that's a beautiful thing. We know we have more work to do, but damn, is this hard. It is hard. It's hard business. And it's hard to survive 3 rounds just to get to that final round. We're extremely grateful for that. We're not even going to think about this next round until we get to Denver. And I wanted everybody to acknowledge just how difficult it is and, to enjoy this moment. It's the longer you're around in this business, you realize the harder and harder it is to do something like this. It's a special group. So we'll definitely take this, and it's poetic justice, to be able to get it on this court, tough environment. We'll celebrate a little bit tonight on that plane to Denver, and then we'll get on to that next challenge.
I think Eric Spoelstra is on my list of favorite coaches of all time too. Even that, listening to him talk, he says all the right things. There's nothing snarky in his voice about it. There's no "I'm smarter than you." There's none of that. He just seems like a regular dude that is just really, really smart at basketball, to word it in the most unintelligent way I could.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. I think he's great, and I think has the right tone and temperament for his players, and able to get the best out of his players and having them react and play their best brand of basketball. And there's just this otherworldly belief that they have in each other. And I think it's, Riley and Spoelstra setting the tone for that entire franchise. Let's get from the Boston perspective. Let's start with Tatum and hear from him last night. Rolled his ankle early. We know he was limited. It was a scenario of he was clearly being an offensive kind of, I would say, guy that was playing off of, could knock down the outside shot, but clearly couldn't generate his own shot. That's why the offense was being run through White in the second half. Here's Tatum after the loss for the Boston Celtics in Game 7.
You guys have come close now a number of times. What needs to change for you, for the team, for the organization to kind of get over the hump?
To win a championship?
Yeah.
We've shown that we can get there. We get to the conference finals. It's my 4th time in 6 years. And been to the finals once. And we had a special opportunity this year. We just fell a little bit short. It's not like we're not capable. We don't have the talent. We do. It just didn't go our way this year.
How about Jaylen Brown? No, I mean, it's not wrong. It didn't.
No.
I mean, and it's disappointing. They're the more talented team. Like this year was supposed to be the crescendo year after the run to the NBA Finals last year and losing to the Golden State
And
Warriors.
being up 2-1, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation this year was that they're going to win an NBA title. How about Jaylen Brown, who was god awful, like not bad. Jaylen Brown was brutal last night for the Boston Celtics. He had 8 turnovers in the game all by himself. Here is Brown after the Celtics loss.
And what happened out there tonight? It seemed like shots didn't go down early, then the defense slipped, and shots still didn't go down, and then turnovers. Just what happened personally? What happened with the team?
We failed. I failed, and we let the whole city down.
Jaylen, you guys talked when the series was kind of falling apart at the beginning about having kind of a crisis of the defensive identity, and that kind of came back for these last few games, and tonight it seemed to fall off. How crucial was defense this year to helping you guys figure out how to even get into your offense? And when you're not getting stops, as you saw tonight, how hard was it for you guys to figure out how to try to run an offense?
Yeah, defense has allowed us to get to this point, and offensively we didn't play our best, and defensively we were decent tonight, not good enough, but offensively it just seemed like we just couldn't hit a shot, and it just put more pressure on our defense. We had a bunch of good looks and nothing went in, and we all gotta sit back and reflect from that. Like I said before, I mean, we failed, and it's hard to pull anything else from the situation. But it's been a blessing to play the game of basketball to this point. One game from the finals, and it stings incredibly, and it's hard even being up here and talking about it. But all I can say is give credit to the group that we had this season. Give credit to our coaching staff that we had this season. We had a lot of ups and downs. We had a lot of things that was going on internally, et cetera, and we fought. We fought our way back from down 3-0, and we got to this position, and we came up short.
Yeah, I mean, fair, honest. I mean, he was brutal. Now the question is, what do you do? I mean, stop. How about this? I mean, try and get to the rim when the 3-point shot is not falling. I mean, I think Barkley, calling them the dumbass Celtics after the end of after the first half was dead on correct. I mean, he was being asked about Jimmy Butler. He's like, I can't hold this back. I mean, what is Boston doing? They're running down the court and they're hoisting up the first open 3 that they have. There's no semblance of an offense. They're not multiple. They're not sharing the basketball. It's not attacking the rim. They're not multi-dimensional. It's one dimension. It's basically, when can they start shooting the 3? I mean, it really is. And Jaylen Brown, now the question comes into a play, Keith, is, do you pay Jaylen Brown? Because you got to make that decision. And is Jaylen Brown and Tatum the right 1-2 combination to win an NBA title up in Boston? I'll tell you this, though, be careful, because Tatum's not going anywhere. Just my quick thought on it, Keith, would be this. Be careful about trading Jaylen Brown, because if you do, you better get enough back.
Yeah.
Because, that's – if you make the wrong deal and trade Jaylen Brown away and don't get enough pieces back for Jaylen Brown, then the window might just basically slam shut on this Celtics team.
Don't get it twisted. Jaylen Brown is an all-NBA performer who had a really bad Game 7, a very poor Eastern Conference Finals, and not a great playoffs in general. Okay? It happens. Even the best of the best have bad games and have bad series and have bad playoff runs. With all of that, the Celtics are going to pay him. And the question then becomes, are you paying him to trade him? And Moose, you nailed it. Because if you're going to look to trade Jaylen Brown, are you getting top 15 player in the NBA value back? My guess is no. So you keep Jaylen Brown, you work this time. The fact that everyone today is saying that this Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum tandem doesn't work. First and foremost, we don't know what their relationship is off the court, on the court, right? They seem like they're fine, whatever. I don't know if they're best of friends or worst of friends or whatever. But no one was saying it didn't work when they were up 2-1 last year in the NBA Finals. No one was saying it didn't work when they came back and beat the Sixers in 7 when they were down 3-2. Like, it's really easy to just sit here and say that dynamic duo can't work. They've been to multiple conference finals. They've been to the NBA Finals. It can work. They just haven't got over the hump. But guess what? Only one team each year gets over the hump and wins. I don't know. I don't know what value you could get to trade Jaylen Brown. I don't think you'd get your money, your value back.
I mean, you're going to get Jay Cabasa mentions Dame Lillard. You want Dame Lillard? I mean, he would look nice in a Celtic uniform.
Yeah, sure. He would look good, but
I mean, the one thing you would here's the one thing, and it's not my original thought. Tim Legler, I heard him last night post game on Sirius XM NBA Radio making the point. He said, they're two unbelievable players, but offensively they don't work together. And not saying that they're not good offensively or the Celtics are not good offensively. It's just that they don't work as a tandem together.
It's like Tatum works, Brown works, and
Correct.
Because they're both good, they still win games.
Right, correct. They work very, very they have
individualistic
styles offensively.
That makes sense.
And so he said you might be able to deal, obviously you're not trading Tatum because Tatum's the better player. You might be able to deal Brown to get players that work better offensively with Jason Tatum, that they're not there alone on an island. Maybe, but yeah. I'd just be like, we saw his deficiencies and he's got work to get to. And he's got to work on his dribble. He's got to work on his handle. Some of his decision-making last night was dreadful as too. But I also think the Boston Celtics started to force some things. It's going to be one because the Boston Celtics have got to make a decision whether or not they're going to pay Jaylen Brown.
Right.
But they've had a lot of success, and I agree with you. We're in agreement. Be careful if you move them. You better get enough back in return. Let's welcome Matt Deutsch, the better boss.
Matt who? Matt Deutsch. Matt who?
Look at him. Oh, striped shirt.
Woo!
The Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, Matt, taking on Denver.
Wow. Fun game last night. I mean, I'm a fraud Heat fan, but I am a Heat fan, so I'm excited. And good job by the Celtics owning it. That's the way you do a press conference when you lose and show the city that you're tough. And I applaud the Celtics for sure. Those shots just didn't go in. I've never seen a game like it. Like Jaylen Brown said, they had shots. They just didn't go in. I don't know if the Celtics played that poorly. Is that crazy?
It looked like the Rockets a couple of years ago, that game that they had in Game 7 where they just couldn't hit a shot. And James Harden was like 2 for 17 shooting. That's what it kind of looked like.
I guess it happens. So excited. And I don't know how you beat this Nuggets team. I guess they're going to have to spolster them and outcoach this team. I'm sure you'll see a lot of zone, I'm guessing. And TV-wise, right, Moose and Keith, the network's not happy.
No,
they can't
Boston
be.
and Denver.
Happy,
Miami and Denver is not going to light up America.
And
I'll tell you, here's the one thing. We talk about Denver. Denver's an unbelievable offensive team. They really are. Not a great defensive team, but an unbelievable offensive team. If Miami can slow them down with their defense, and
Miami was. Sorry, go ahead.
Miami was great defensively, right? Yep. I mean, throughout the course of the year, and there's rumblings Tyler Hero will be back for Game 3 of this series, and now it'll be interesting to see how Spoelstra and company work Tyler Hero back into the mix, and just how rusty is he after being out for the last, month and a half with that broken hand, and what does that look like? But listen, it's hard to sit here on this Tuesday and say Miami doesn't have a chance against Denver after watching them do what they did against Milwaukee, New York, and Boston.
Plus 330 to win the final, the Heat.
Wow, what a run. And Bam Adebayo was not good at all, and they still were able to win. I mean, I still can't get over it. I mean, he's such a good player, but he looked lost out there. And I think if you're an Eastern Conference fan, you're happy. I know you don't want to see Miami win. I know it hurts, Mark. I know it hurts a lot going all the way back to Riley. It hurts so much. But it's so much better than Boston being the dominant team and ruling over.
I'm with you, Matt.
Yes. Matt, congratulations.
They're going to break up the Celtics now.
No, they're not going to. Brown and Tatum are going to stay together. They're not going to break up this. I think so. But yes, I have to it was a long night watching that game, and the fact that the game was basically over an hour into it. The game was over. You never really got a sense that Boston was going to come back and win that game. Even when they cut it to 8, Miami would go on then a quick 7-0 run. The lead would be 15 again. I mean, it was just like there was never a time where you thought Boston was anything that they were doing was sustainable. Matt, congratulations.
All right. I'm happy for the Heat and excited to have a good final, listen to you guys and break this thing down, have you guys talking hockey and baseball and all the rest. But thanks for having me on. Let's go Heat. You can all jump on the bandwagon now. Get on board. Get on board.
No. I'm going to go buy a Nikola Jokic jersey.
Yeah. Himal Murray all the way.
I need Nikola to end Heat culture. I don't need because we're gonna Deutsch. We'll give, if the Heat win, we'll buy you a T-shirt that says Heat culture.
Oh, I love that. Eric Spoelstra is not an old man. He's gonna break all the records. I mean, how far can he go? He's gonna coach another 15 years. This guy at least.
Yeah. Yep, he's awesome. As long as he wants to coach, he will continue to coach. Yes.
Wow. Well, amazing. I'm looking forward to the rest of the show. I'll bow out here and we'll have some fun with the NBA as we go.
Yeah, we're doing some hockey next. All right, later, Matt.
Mick Kern's going to join the program next. Congratulations, Deutsch. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You did not look pleased.
No, it's like salt in the wound. It really is. Deutsch. Deutsch, who's been a Heat fan for like 5 minutes.
Hey, he loves him some JimmyButler.
We'll talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Finals are set. And it is going to be Florida taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. We're going to get into that. Mick Kern will join the program. He'll do that next. He's Keith Arizari. I'm Mark Malusis. Moose and Keith with you on this Tuesday. Thanks for being with us right here on the Better Sports Network.
Bye weeks are so incredibly important in baseball because you can't change your lineup. You can't grab somebody off the waiver wire. You don't make changes. So you've got to be prepared. If you're taking 4 quarterbacks because you want to be sure you got to be very methodical about the schedule, especially the bye weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point by you because I don't, in redraft leagues and in especially in dynasty leagues, I don't give a damn about bye weeks in a dynasty league. I'm taking the talent that I need. Especially if it's like a startup dynasty league, man. And so, that's created situation. Matt Deutsch's league last year, I had a glut of, it was like week 9, I seem to remember. It was the bye week of death for me. Like, it's a 2 quarterback league. I had a bunch of QBs. They were like all on the bye at the same week. It was insane. At best ball, you've got to really be strategic about that. And it's almost more important than the statistics that you might put next to the player as the bye week to let you know, no, I can't go there because I got this guy, this guy, and this guy already.
You have an opportunity to get a quarterback you want, but your first 2 have the same bye week. You just can't do that to yourself. You have to be thinking it through. I do pay attention to bye weeks in my drafts. I just do. It makes me a lot less of a struggle bus situation when it comes to Buymageddon. I don't want to have 4 players. I want to have all my wide receivers and just be playing scrubs. I don't want to have to get rid of a player that I like, that's healthy, that's performing for me just because out of desperation.
Let me talk to you, Vlad, about an award here that I thought was very, very debatable. And it was Cy Young in the National League. In terms of odds, it's Strider at plus 230, Zach Gallen at plus 215, Clayton Kershaw plus 1,000. Clayton Kershaw, to me, his numbers are phenomenal and better, or at least right there with these other 2. Strider was my preseason pick to win the award. But Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000 compared to these other guys with similar numbers in the plus 200s. Like, let's bang on Kershaw and hope he doesn't get hurt, right? Where are you at with that, Vlad?
Yeah, those are great odds. I think the only concern that fantasy players and Dodgers fans had before the season started was innings limitations. Just wanting to make sure that he is fully ramped up for the playoffs. And as some teams do, you sometimes get those phantom IL stints. And we might see that sometime maybe around the All-Star break with Kershaw just to preserve his arm over the second half of the season. But, man, he's a great pick. If you're telling me those are the odds, that's really, really nice. I do love your Spencer Strider pick. I think that's what I would have done in the preseason and bet on him. He's an absolute beast. So, but Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000, those are phenomenal odds. And you mentioned Zach Gallen. He's incredible too. And looks like Arizona has been in the hunt there in the playoff. Well, so far it's early. Dodgers, maybe Padres will be in competition for that division. But yeah, that's a nice three-way race, and we might see some other players pop in there.
Stanley Cup Finals are set. Let's welcome aboard Mick Kern, Sirius XM NHL Radio, joins the program now. He's been waiting patiently. Sorry for the delay, Mick. We appreciate it. Thanks for the time on this Tuesday morning.
Are you getting me loud and clear?
We got you loud and clear. We got you.
All right.
Mick, let's start. Can I just what the hell happened to Jake Ottinger in this series for Dallas? I mean, he was unbelievable. And then he was basically he looked like a backup goalie against Vegas.
He had his moments. The trouble is you can't have moments because, like in any sport, it funnels down to the best teams and every error is going to be pounced on. I think in some ways, I'm as guilty as this as anyone. We overvalue Jake Ottinger. I think he's going to have a fine career. Don't get me wrong. He may win a Stanley Cup. I like how Dallas is built. But I think because of his performance last year in the first round against Calgary, where he was outstanding and pushed that series to 7, even though they lost to Matthew Tkachuk and the Flames at the time, I think we expected that again, and we saw dribs and drabs of it, more drabs than dribs. He was out goaltended by Adin Hill, and we all said, I'm guilty of this as anyone. He's the best goalie left in the playoffs. No, Bobrovsky was better. Adin Hill was better. Frederik Andersen for Carolina was better. He was the worst of the 4 goalies, of the main goalies left in the playoffs, and that's a big reason why you don't win. Hockey could be called goalie because of the nature of the sport. Unlike soccer where, every 7 days they might get near the net. In hockey, you're there every 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So if you don't have a good goalie, you're sunk. You don't have to have an outstanding goaltender. It's kind of like when the Ravens won the Super Bowl. You don't have to have an outstanding quarterback, but you have to have a guy who does all the decent stuff. It's the same with hockey, and he didn't do it. Now, that's not the only reason they lost, but people are going to try to – hockey's so nice. They're going to say, well, he didn't really – yeah, he was a big reason they lost. Also, just give credit to Vegas. They just gummed up the works. They put the spanner in the works. They jammed everything up. They didn't let the Stars' best players be the best players. That happens in every sport. Well, why didn't that guy do anything? Outside of injuries we don't know about, the other team got in the way. As fans, we sometimes forget there's another team out there. Why didn't my guys win? Because the other team was better. So I think the proper team won in this case. I like how Dallas is built. They will be around again. They are going to be a power. It's going to be curious to see how they integrate even younger players in, because the Joel Pavelskis of the world can't go forever. I think he's 34, which in hockey is ancient. But the right team, in a sense, because I didn't care personally. I didn't pick either. I didn't cheer for either one. The right team in both series won their series, but more so in the West than in the East.
Stick with the West. If people have not been watching, Vegas Golden Knights hockey, tell them about the Golden Knights and why they are in the Cup final right now.
They are like many teams. It's next man up. Hockey's a unique sport, unlike baseball, football, and even basketball. The big 4, I guess you can throw in soccer and lacrosse too. Lacrosse is similar, is that you have to roll your lines. The best teams roll their lines. It's not a starting lineup, and then there's, for people who don't know, and then you put in extras later, like my beloved baseball. You don't do that. Everybody plays, and the better teams can roll their lines. Yeah, the Stars are going to get more ice time. With the advent of TV timeouts about 30 years ago, Stars get more ice time if you look at in a 60-minute game. But your third and fourth line, who are more talented now than they were 30 years ago. They were truly third and fourth lines, lucky to be in the league. That's not the case. The best teams in the 19-man roster, 1 to 17 from the guys who are skaters, not counting the 2 goaltenders, are outstanding players. Some are stars, a couple are superstars, but your rank and file are really good. That's Vegas in a nutshell. Seattle's been built that way. Florida has embraced that. Carolina was built that way. But the key in hockey still, there's like 3 elements. I heard this said last night on television. I agree. You got to have good goaltending. We just discussed. You have to have depth, because your depth is going to come through at times, but your stars have to show up. And in the case of Vegas, even though Jack Eichel from Boston University, who spent a few years in Buffalo, and the big trade to help both teams with the Sabres, and now he's in Vegas, his first time in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he's been outstanding. He didn't have a great Western Conference final in the sense he didn't get on the scoreboard. But that's all right. Keith Tkachuk didn't light it up against Carolina either. But they do all the other things, and at any moment's notice, they can be dangerous. So you have to have that three-pronged. It sounds like any sport. But in hockey, your goaltender's got to be good. You got to have depth, and your stars have to elevate their game.
You mentioned Matthew Tkachuk in Florida. It just seems like they're the team of destiny. I feel for Carolina because that was not a – I mean, that was a series that easily could have gone 7 games, how well Carolina played, and they were not healthy and whole. But, you know, Matthew Tkachuk, number one, I feel for the Calgary Flame fan because he was like, you know, get me out of here. I don't want to stay here after, you know, we saw Johnny Hockey leave for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then and now he's down in Florida and he's in the Stanley Cup final. What about this magic carpet ride that the Florida Panthers and Paul Maurice have been on?
Oh, it's been outstanding. If people who don't know, they're the lowest ranked team, 8th seed in the East, 16th overall, the 16th team that gets in. And they're playing, by the way, the top seed in the West. So it's David versus Goliath, except, you know, if you look at the details, Florida were the best team in the league last season. So 12 months, did they go for a sleep? They went for that Fred Flintstone sleep at the picnic for 12 months. I think maybe they did. And they woke up and Pebbles and Bam Bam were married and all that stuff. You remember. So
Yes,
I think,
remember.
yeah, so I think that's what happened.
Mick, that is a great reference.
Yeah, I love
Wow.
that. So, 2 things happened, though. Florida, they didn't look good in the playoffs last year. They beat Washington, who are definitely they didn't make the playoffs this year, the Caps. And they didn't look good doing it. Then they got swept by Tampa this time last year. Okay, no big deal, but they didn't look good. And Florida could have just said, hey, we finished first overall, but this is good management. Bill Zito and crew said, who's the GM, said, no, that's not acceptable. So they changed their head coach. They went to get Paul Maurice, who had walked out on the Jets, and that's a whole different story because the Jets are kind of a weird story. And they went and traded one of their franchise players, Jonathan Huberdeau, a really good defenseman in Mr. Uyghur, to Calgary for Keith Tkachuk. Now, that looked like maybe it was a wash. Some were even saying in the summer Calgary won that trade while recognizing that Matthew Tkachuk is a paradigm-shifting player, but that's the key. He is a superstar, and he acclimatized very nice to the weather there and the team, and he's got a no-nonsense kind of attitude. He's like, we're not here to celebrate until we win the whole thing. And I love him. I love him and Brady, his brother, up in Ottawa. I think they're great players. And so Florida recognized their shortcomings instead of patting themselves on the back. And they took a risk of stepping back. And they did in the regular season. It took them to about January. So half the season's gone. They're in a fight for the playoffs. They were down to the last week. If the Pittsburgh Penguins beat the Chicago Blackhawks, I think in the last game the Penguins play, the Penguins make the playoffs. The Panthers don't. The lowly Chicago Blackhawks won that game. Doing 2 things: kicked out the Penguins, allowed Florida to step in, and put Chicago in a place where they end up winning the draft lottery. But that's another story. So Florida did it by the skin of their Panther teeth, and when they got in there, they became the team they were in January, not in October. And as you know, guys, they beat the Bruins by 1 goal. Doesn't matter; they won. I was at 3 of the games here in Toronto. They were the better team against Toronto, and against Carolina. You're right; it was a sweep. But it was the closest sweep I've ever seen in hockey.
Yeah.
Even in baseball, it was by 1 run, one goal the whole time. But you know what? In the end, you know this, guys. We can have all the analytics, all the stats. There's one stat that matters in NBA, MLB, hockey. The W. And did you get 4 before the other guy got 4? Did you get 4? By the way, you got swept, and that's what the record books will show. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. How important has it, and I know you said about the 3 layers of things that you need, but seeing Sergei Bobrovsky, seeing Bob kind of turn back the clock to look like what he was last year, the year before, and the years prior. I mean, what did he go? He's 11-2 in the playoffs, so 2.21 goals against average. He's looked like the best netminder on the ice.
He looks like a $10 million goalie because for the longest time, we're like, whoa, Florida. He drafted by the Flyers. He showed promise. He went to Columbus, won 2 Vezinas, which if people don't know means you're the top goalie in the league. He looked outstanding. Florida enticed him. He went for $10 million a year. And then they drafted a young guy named Spencer Knight, who's having some problems right now off the ice. He's trying to get his life back together. He's still their goalie of the future. But right now, Bobrovsky has reclaimed that mantle. He was sick down the stretch. So Alex Lyon came in, a 30-year-old journeyman. I'm old, so to me, that's old. I love the old guys when they play. He did rather well, but the plan was always to put Bobrovsky back in, and Bobo went back in, has been outstanding. Here's the thing, though. And this is why if you're betting on the Stanley Cup final, keep this in mind. Bobrovsky does better with more days of rest. He's not best at every second day playing. Stanley Cup Finals not working that way. It gets going Saturday in Vegas, and then I think it goes Monday. And then after that, there's like 2 days in between before they play. And that happens a couple of times, maybe 3 times. So if you're leaning towards Florida, keep that in mind. That's going to play right into Bobrovsky's catching glove. That's really nice setup for the Panthers, how the schedule is going to unfold.
Mick, who do you like in the Cup final?
Oh, man, don't make me do that. I had Boston against Vegas in the Stanley Cup final. That didn't turn out. And I kind of almost went Colorado, but so I'm going to say Vegas only because I picked against Florida every round, and I think they called me up and said, "Mick, keep picking against us." So I'm going Vegas.
Well,
I'm going to go 7.
All right, so you like Vegas in 7. What would that mean? I mean, Cassidy, with the way that he was let go in Boston, and then they have the historic year, but then they crash against Florida in the postseason. He goes to Vegas, and Bruce Cassidy now has the Golden Knights on the precipice of winning a Stanley Cup, and in the Cup final. What would this victory mean for Cassidy?
That smile. Just kind of like,
It's like one of those vindication smiles.
Yeah, hockey's not very much. Some guys, more and more, the younger guys, in your face, but it's kind of it's a small town Canadian American sport. It's changing. It's basically a rich boy sport now, but it used to be that. Still has that sort of veneer of I know. I'll see you at the banquets, and I'll smile, and you'll look away. Put it this way: either coach wins, it's great. Paul Maurice has been around since I think they invented hockey, and he's been to the.
He actually invented hockey. I don't know if you knew that.
He may have.
He was the inventor.
Back in 2002 with the Canes and lost to a very good Detroit team. Either he wins his first cup or Cassidy wins his first cup. One of these franchises win their first Stanley Cup. That's always a notable accomplishment because, as you know, even though there's only 32 teams in the league, same thing happens in baseball and any sport. Even though there's not that many teams, it seems like some teams never get there. Hello, Seattle Mariners. And so when you get there, you better win because I don't know if Florida does this next year. I don't know if Vegas does this next year. Buffalo and Detroit and Ottawa are getting better. Everybody's getting better. And that's the whole point of the sport. So when you're there, I think it should be the best series of the spring. I hope it's not a sweep. I want 7 games because I'm selfish.
Yeah, I would love some 7 games too. So I'm rooting for the Panthers just for Bill Lindsay. I work with Bill over at NHL Network.
No.
Did you happen to see the video of him?
Yes.
At NHL Network? Oh my God, he was going crazy. I was at MLB Network that day, not NHL that day. But anyway, what do you make of the teams touching the conference trophies or not? Is there anything to that? Okay.
Doesn't matter. If people don't know, there's the beautiful one thing the NHL does right. Their trophies are fantastic looking.
Yep.
I don't know how they got that right. They got a lot wrong, but they got that one right. The Prince of Wales trophy for the East, Clarence Campbell Bowl for the West. They're beautiful trophies. Kids in the 70s, when I was collecting hockey cards, I'm that old, used to, I don't want the trophy cards. So I want the trophy cards. I don't know. I have a whole collection of trophy cards. There's history. If you touch the trophy, you don't win. But there's also Sidney Crosby didn't the first time they went to Stanley Cup final. Penguins didn't win. Next year, he touched it or picked it up. They won. They won 2 in a row back in 16, 17, whenever it was. And so there is no correlation. I think it's something we make more of. Florida picked it up and no, hell yeah, this is a nice trophy. If Matthew Tkachuk says so, I believe him. I'd probably follow him into battle. But yet Vegas didn't do it. And I think both are fine. I love that they pose for the trophy. They're great looking trophies. It's an accomplishment. Yeah. I remember Billy Martin said that years ago with the 76 Yankees. And yes, I go back that far, is that we played the Big Red Machine. We lost 4 straight. This is before Reggie, but he said that was the best year because Reggie wasn't there. And we had a good team. Just getting to the World Series is an accomplishment. And I think it's the same thing with the Stanley Cup final. Of course you want to win. That's my way of saying with my Buffalo Bison's hat to all those Bills fans. You were winners. You won 4 times. Yeah,
Mick, we know, and we're going to be checking. You've got your program on Sirius XM NHL Radio right at the top of the hour. I got to ask you one before we let you go about the Rangers head coaching position. I'm a huge Ranger fan. Been a Ranger fan my entire life. I don't think Gerard Gallant deserved to be fired and let go or parting of the ways, but clearly, they were disappointed. They were all in this season with the moves that Drury made at the deadline. Where are the Rangers going now? What is the next coach? Because if Drury doesn't get this right, Mick, he's going to be the one that's going to be let go if he doesn't bring in the right coach. Who do you think is the guy that comes in and coaches the Rangers?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer. I'll throw you a few. First of all, common wisdom is in the NHL, the GM gets 3 head coaches and then he walks the plank. We'll see. Toronto's sort of in that same position now with Brendan Shanahan. But they're both teams in a Stanley Cup window. If things have broken a certain way, I could see the Rangers in the final this year. I could have seen the Maple Leafs in the final. It didn't happen. It tend to happen. They're both in that window. So I don't think the Rangers go just like a Dave Quinn like they did and go for somebody out of college. I think they go with a proven coach with a track record. Peter Laviolette's name comes up a lot. They believe with a tweak here or two, and I don't think they're wrong, that they could be in the Cup final next year. They're going to have to sometime in the next 3 or 4 years because that's when the hard decisions start to hit with some of the veterans. But you know what? No matter what coach you have, and as you know this, guys, the players play. Panarin's got to play better. Patrick Kane, I did like the Tarasenko, but there is some nice. Adam Fox is as good as you get. There are nice pieces here for the Rangers. The head coach, I think, will be a veteran because of that reason.
Who's your baseball team again? I forget.
Expos.
Okay. All right. Who's your current baseball team?
I haven't lost in a while, by the way.
Yeah, you've been undefeated for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, my dad's team, sorry about this, he grew up in the East Coast, and he was surrounded by Red Sox fans, so he became a Yankees fan in the late 40s. Good time to become a Yankees fan. So the Yankees are actually my team. I kind of cheer for Toronto here because you live in the city. I'm going to the game tonight, Brewers in Toronto. But because I'm an Expos fan, I like the little guys. I like the Brewers, the Pirates, 1 and 2 right now in their division. I like the Twins. I like teams like that.
I like Bo Bichette over 1.5 total bases today.
He can't play defense, but man, his bat's good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. From a betting standpoint, I don't bet on defense. There you go.
Yeah, I know.
Mick, I'm just happy Vegas is in the Cup final because we get to watch that pregame routine again.
They do it. I haven't been to a game there yet, but I'd love to. They do it right. And the NHL got it right by being the first big league into Vegas. And I think good for them to have the foresight. I think fantastic.
Hopefully we get a good Cup final. Hey, Mick, have a great show today on Sirius XM NHL Radio. We appreciate the time this morning.
I appreciate it. Anytime. Call me.
Yep.
You
Go
got
Expos.
Mick Kern. He's awesome. He's fantastic.
I love that. He's like, Montreal Expos, they haven't lost in a while.
Yeah, I know. He's great. I went to an Expos game before they left up in Montreal.
Did you really? That's awesome. I did not. I have an Expos t-shirt. That's all I got for you.
Me and my buddies, we traveled up to Montreal from
Montreal.
What for the World Cup of Hockey, United States, Canada.
Okay. Was that in like Montre Blanc, right? Isn't that the area? Right?
That was it. I don't know what the area. Well, it was at the Forum. It was at the home of the Canadiens, and we were there for a few days. We went to an Expos game, so it was great.
Beautiful up there.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Or at least the area that I once was.
Yeah. No, the United States won and beat Canada, and it was the atmosphere outside was fantastic, and we were like, the only not many people there that were rooting for the United States team, and that was the United States team. It was loaded. That Richter and Modano and Hull and Leach and Hatcher brothers were on that team as well. At least one of them, I think it was.
What did that would have been? What, like 98?
96, I believe.
96.
It was.
Okay.
96 World Cup of Hockey. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was. And then we met the entire United States team afterward. They were walking out of the arena.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Richter, I got him to sign. Modano, Hull, a program. It was great. It was fantastic.
And at that time, that's basically, you were like the same age as all of them, basically.
I was 20 at that time. I was 20 years old.
Oh, okay. I was off on the. Okay.
No. They were older than me. They were much. 96. Richter had been in the league for, I don't know. Richter had been probably in his early 30s at that stage.
I guess that's true. 96. Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I
wasn't trying to make you older. I actually was making them younger.
No. Yeah. No. I was not but they were all pretty much in the prime of their career. Hull was a little bit older at that stage. But yeah, it was just seeing an Expos game up there. It would be great to see baseball back in Montreal. Unfortunately,
I don't think it'll ever happen.
No,
I don't think it's that. I'm excited about this Cup final. I think that you got two. For a lack of, they're gritty teams, right? Like they'll grind a little bit. Both of them been in a bunch of overtime games in this postseason. You got Florida knows that they can win those games, and I think that the correlation between the Panthers and the Heat, it's fair, right? Like, and I think that you and I have done this a little bit too. Both of them were the best teams in their said conferences last year. This year was the regression year. This year was the all right, well, good. The Panthers made the playoffs. They're going to lose in 5 or 6 in the opening round. Oh, the Heat, got through the playing round. They'll lose in 4 or 5, maybe 6 in the opening round. And then both of the teams kind of got it going. They've gotten like sort of extra work from players they didn't expect. And then I think the Bobrovsky angle is amazing for the Florida Panthers. And I could just remember whatever it was 2-3 years ago when he signed the deal with the Panthers. We had him on NHL Network. He was on NHL Tonight with me. And I think it was Ken Danico with me that day. And he was just smiling ear to ear, you know, grinning, very happy to be going to Florida, being a part of that organization. And then you get Spencer Knight gets drafted there, and you kind of wonder what was going to happen there. And Bobrovsky is just kind of like, you know, he's like, all right, I'll just continue being me. I love the fact that he took over that spot again in this postseason. And I read you those stats, the 11-2, the 2.21 goals against average, almost 94% save percentage.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Bobrovsky. I think I would lean Florida here. I would lean Vegas here slightly. I think we're going to get an epic series.
I hope I think it's two wonderful stories. You and I are both hockey guys. What saddens me, I think it might get buried because of the fact of it's Vegas and Florida in terms of a national perspective.
But luckily, the NBA didn't get Lakers. Like, if you're a hockey person,
if
the NBA would have gotten Lakers and Celtics, hockey would forget it. Like, no one would have paid attention
to oblivion. That's fair. That's a good point. You're right about that. I think it's a very fascinating series. I think it is. My kids are rooting for Vegas. I think Vegas is the deserved favorite. Wouldn't put anything past Florida because sometimes it's just, for whatever reason, it's kind of like your year. Like to now all of a sudden go into this series and thinking and be like, okay, well, Florida can't beat Vegas. Why not? I mean, they went out and the Florida Panthers took care of business against the Bruins, the Leafs, and the Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference, and now we're taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. They've already beaten the best team that they're going to face because Boston obviously was historically great during the course of the regular season. Would lead you to believe, and sometimes it's just, the hockey gods are smiling upon you. I think it's pretty cool. We're going to see one of these organizations win the Stanley Cup for the first time in their franchise's history. I think the story of Matthew Tkachuk, I mentioned it when about the Calgary Flames. Feel terrible for the Flames fans watching what Tkachuk is doing now, and he's a guy that asked out, and they made that deal and traded him to the Florida Panthers. Tkachuk is a guy that you absolutely love and adore. I saw him on the pregame when they were down in Miami on TNT the other night with Barkley and Kenny Smith and Ernie Johnson and Shaquille O'Neal. That was a pretty cool moment for Matthew Tkachuk because Barkley is amazing, and I love the fact that he's a hockey fan and, he goes to hockey playoff games and all that. So, I think it's good. Hopefully what we get is a great series. The Eastern Conference finals were entertaining. They only lasted 4 games because every puck bounced Florida's way. And when this Dallas-Vegas series was going to get interesting, all of a sudden Vegas scored 3 goals last night in the first period.
That was crazy.
And the game was over.
Yep.
I mean, the game was over at the first intermission. Dallas wasn't coming back from 3-0 down. And I was really disappointed in the performance of Jake Ottinger.
A certain friend of ours, Moose, had 2 Stanley Cup exactas. Panthers beating the Knights, 17-1 odds. Had the Knights beating the Panthers, 18-1 odds. And his name rhymes with Maeve Marapan. That's it. That's what I'll give you.
I know he texted me that last night.
Right?
And he said, now the real work begins.
Exactly. Oh, you got the exact same text as me.
We'll come back. We're going to chat. We're going to chat with James Grande, the real Grande from Fantasy Alarm. He's going to join us next. He's Keith Arizari. I'm Mark Malusis. The show is Moose and Keith with you on this Tuesday right here, Better Sports Network.
Monday Night Rants with Edward Rouse on Better Sports Network.
Do you believe in the Madden curse? Do you think that's a real thing?
I did. Now, I don't think it's as big of a deal anymore, but it was a real thing for a solid 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it was Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson, Peyton Hillis.
LT was never on the cover. I know that.
Was he not? I thought he was one. Okay, well, you do know all the covers of everything.
Yeah, okay, so if you want, I could do this real quick. So Garrison Hurst is the first official Madden cover athlete. 1999. 2000, I believe they still put John Madden on the cover. And then 2001 is where it all started. So 2001, you have Eddie George. 2002, Dante Culpepper. 2003, Marshall Falk. 04, Michael Vick. 05, Ray Lewis, first defensive player on the cover.
Okay.
06, Donovan McNabb. 07, Sean Alexander.
Okay.
08, Vince Young. 09, Brett Favre.
Okay.
10 is a trick one because it's
no way you know.
And Larry Fitzgerald. 11, Drew Brees. 12, Peyton Hillis. 13, Calvin Johnson, I believe so.
You're right.
14.
No way you know all this.
14, also a trick question. I believe that's the Madden 25 cover, and it's Barry Sanders, unless you got it for the new consoles, in which case Adrian Peterson
Oh my God.
was on the cover.
You're not cheating. You're not looking at.
Swear on my life. Swear on my life.
Okay. Keep on going.
15, you have Richard Sherman.
Okay.
16. Oh, okay, hold on. 16 is Odell Beckham.
Okay.
16. 17. Now, this is the one I get mixed up because 17 and 18 are back-to-back Patriots.
They are.
17, I think, is Gronk, and 18 is Brady.
You are correct.
19 is Antonio Brown.
Correct.
20, Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my goodness.
21, Lamar Jackson. 22, Brady Mahomes. 23, John Madden. Yeah, dude, I'm a cover nerd when it comes to this stuff.
We now know, but that was really impressive. I don't know how.
Thank you.
That's literally 29 of them or something like that. Wow, that is. You did not miss a single one, and you even got the special editions where they had two people on the covers.
Monday Night Rants on Better Sports Network.
When your brain goes numb, you can call that mental freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion.
We're back here. It is Moose and Keith on Better Sports Network. He is Mark Malusis. I am Keith Irizarry. James Grande will join us now from Fantasy Alarm. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, guys? Happy Tuesday. Happy NBA Finals week. And I hear you guys are NHL fans. So I'm not. So I'm much more excited for the NBA Finals coming Thursday. Just to be very transparent about that, but
yeah,
happy Tuesday.
We opened the entire show talking NBA. Listen, Mark and I work for many different networks, so we cover a lot of different sports. Actually, let's start there. Let's have some fun with this.
Okay.
What would be the sport you wouldn't want to cover?
Hockey.
That's the number one. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I like baseball, basketball, football. I would love to do if boxing wasn't so corrupt, I would love to dive more into boxing on but hockey would probably be right up there. Now, and not that I dislike the sport. It's always during basketball season. So I've always just prioritized basketball, and then that's really it.
So you're like Mark and I, where you're in a season, you're covering a team, right? So how do you manage being on top of everything you need to know about, fantasy baseball going on? I'm sure you're in many leagues or whatever, right? Yep. And then you're also trying to write articles and cover everything NBA wise as well.
Having a loving wife that helps my put my son down for all his naps, and no, I mean it's just the grind, It's being in this position is just a reward in itself. So I don't know. You just balance between both. Thankfully, early season NBA, when there's 12 game slates, that doesn't happen during 12 game baseball slates, right? The last month or so, it's been 1 or 2 NBA games. So you've been able, to split up your day kind of maybe the morning you spend on basketball and the afternoon you spend on baseball or vice versa. So, it's a balance. Thankfully, we're, once football comes around, end of baseball, that's a little tough because we have, those two are clashing a lot more than baseball and basketball are. But it's a good balance at this time of year because there aren't too many basketball games going on while baseball is taking place.
All right, James, we'll get into a little baseball with you as well during the course of the interview. But let's start with the association. What's the fallout, do you think, James, in Boston after the performance last night? Missoula, you think his job is safe? Jaylen Brown, do you think there's any conversations this summer about Jaylen Brown and maybe using him as a piece to add other pieces around Jason Tatum?
So I don't think Missoula's safe because we just didn't see enough adjustments. And yes, they won 3 games in a row. Was Jimmy Butler aggressive enough in those 3 games like he was in game 7 where there was no hesitation going to the rim, setting his teammates up, yada, yada. I just don't think Missoula made many adjustments throughout the whole postseason, and he just kind of fell into this job for unfortunate circumstances. So I don't think Missoula's safe. The question about Boston is like, do they want to pay $600 million to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? The extension now that he's second team is upwards of $290 and then $315 for Tatum. Now you also look at it conversely. It's like, okay, they've made the Eastern Conference Finals. Hello, buddy. I'm sorry.
You're
right.
good.
I need you to leave the room, please, sir. Okay. It's a great first interview.
No,
here.
what's your son's name?
My son's name is Orion.
That's
Orion?
awesome.
How old is he?
He's 3 years old.
Listen, we're all living in this world where a lot of our stuff is done from home as well.
That's awesome.
Moose has 3 sons. I have 2 sons. We
Right,
talk about our
right.
kids all the time. So actually, that was the best first impression you could have ever made.
No podcast or live stream this year has he interrupted until this very moment. So he had 100% success rate until this moment.
Maybe it's because he really wants to be on the Moose and Keith show. I mean, I'm just saying. Maybe that's
my assumption as well.
Yeah.
But I look at it like Boston. People measure success in all types of different. And this is kind of like dating back to like the Giannis conversation of earlier in the postseason. It's like Boston's been in the Eastern Conference Finals for the last 6 seasons. They were 2 wins away from winning a championship last year. They had a new head coach. Their whole season kind of flipped right off the rip. I don't think they need to change much. Now, I think there needs to be things in maybe an interior that they need to address. Like Al Horford wasn't the same guy in the postseason. He stretched the floor for them. Did none of that during the postseason. Rob Williams was just essentially a 0 in this series, a guy that they expected to be a 30-minute per night guy, I think, heading into the year, and he just wasn't. So I don't think Brown and Tatum are the issues. And like going after, I've heard all week or the last 2 weeks about this Damian Lillard conversation. It's like we're getting a guy in his 30s who is maybe even more of a ball dominant player than Jaylen Brown is. So I think the Boston dynamic between Tatum and Brown is something that, even if it is fractured, can be fixed, because it's not like there's no first round exits. There's not like they're not missing the playoffs. They are a consensus top 3 seed pretty much year in, year out that is basically getting to the Eastern Conference Finals year in, year out. I mean, I would measure success making the Eastern Conference Finals 4 out of 6 times. Like that's pretty hard to do in any conference, especially, in a world where LeBron James has existed for the last 20 seasons. So Missoula, I think, is more on the chopping block. I think Boston needs to figure out a way, pay Brown, pay Tatum, and maybe we get different pieces surrounding them. Because, I mean, look, they've been a great team for, more often than they have in this decade.
Yeah, I think the big thing that Moose and I were talking about, too, is if you're going to trade a Jaylen Brown, what are you getting back? Like, you're right. Damian Lillard, he's excellent. And he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer someday. But he's in his, mid-30s now. He's ball dominant. He needs to shoot. He doesn't play defense. It's not like you're adding something. Like, if you're going to trade Jaylen Brown, it has to be because whatever you're getting back fits better with Jason Tatum and gives you a better chance to get to the conference finals and the championship. And I don't know a lot of things or pieces out there, people out there, that give you a better chance necessarily.
I mean, I think the answer to that, if they wanted to win this year, was Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. Like Kevin Durant was, I think, because when, you think of Kevin Durant, you think, oh, one of the best scorers of all time. But Kevin Durant is just one of the best playmakers. Like he's, LeBron James light in that way. He's not talked about like that, but we saw in this postseason alone, he had multiple double-doubles with assists, so the answer was Kevin Durant, but again, another guy mid-30s. It's not like Kevin Durant's a spring chicken either in terms of his career. So I think they're best suited for Jaylen Brown because there really aren't many other options. unless you get a chance at Victor Wembanyama, then maybe we're,
Right, like if they were sitting there going, all right, we'll trade you the number 1 overall pick for Jalen Brown.
Right.
Yes, please. Okay,
Yes.
sure.
Right.
James, what do you make of what the Heat have done here? And just the accomplishment, Heat culture, Spoelstra, Butler, getting the production they're getting from guys, the 5 undrafted free agents that are on that team. What about everything that Miami has accomplished this year so far in this run?
I can't wait for the movies for this, right? Like they're going to make so many movies or it has to be because it's so unprecedented. I mean, it's crazy. Miami was not a good, and there's a lot of things like Jimmy Butler obviously sat out a lot during the regular season and they were missing guys throughout the season.
And he even admits that the regular season is just getting him ready for the postseason. Yeah.
Right. So there was the 8th seed, they've been a top team in the East for the last few seasons. But they didn't shoot well in the regular season, and that has completely 360 in the postseason where they don't miss. They're great defensively. I don't know. I don't know what else. It's just they feel like a team of destiny, but then they're running into the Nuggets, who I think, me and my Nuggets finals ticket back from October, are now I will, be candid. I did pair that with a Bucks Eastern Conference final. So it was brutal because I thought from the start of the year, Denver was the best team in the West. And obviously that changed when, the Suns traded for Durant, and I was a little worried. But the Heat, they feel like a team of destiny because this was not what they were during the regular season. And it's just, I don't know. They're amazing. They're an amazing team. Their organization is just a fine oiled machine. There's not much else to say. They feel like a team of destiny, but they're running into a team that's a little hot at the moment.
What was that ticket price in October? Do you remember? What'd you get at that?
It was juicy.
What about 20-1 maybe?
Yeah, it was something. They were the 1 seed, but they had the 10th best odds to win the West or to win the finals, but it was the 4th or 5th best odds to win the West. People still, Golden State at that time, everyone still had all their money on Golden State. Yep. Phoenix was still, a couple they were the 1 seed back-to-back years. So I'll dive back into the into the vault to find it.
All right. So how do you think the finals play out?
Yeah, I mean, Denver is very hard to beat at home. I mean, we've in every sport going into that altitude just seems like a nightmare. I mean, pitching in Denver, going to Denver. I mean, the stories about people gassing out. They didn't lose much at home in the regular season, 34-7. They have not lost in the postseason at home. And you know what? If you're Denver, what do you need to do? You need to go into Miami and win 1 game, because even if you do slip once, you're not losing twice at home. They're not losing twice at home. So I personally think Denver had maybe the best, they did exactly what Miami did, but better this year going into the postseason, where they only had 1 player in the top 50 in terms of minutes played. They rested. Jamal Murray didn't play a back-to-back. And yes, there was injuries obviously involved, but didn't play a back-to-back until after the new year. And he only averaged 32 minutes a game. Jokic only averaged 33 minutes a game. They were very well rested going into the postseason. Now you're adding that Series 1 was 5 games. Series 2 was 5 games. 6 games. Then Series 3 was 5 games. Now they have all this they are a very, very, very rested team going into this finals. They're an elite 3-point shooting team. They were in the regular season. They have been in the postseason, and they were actually better defensively in the regular season. And I think that's something that Michael Malone could adjust with, during this time off. Now knowing that they had the Heat or the Celtics, and again, I think there's regression coming for Miami. In terms of 3-point shooting, they were just not this good during the postseason, and I know, or during the regular season. And I know things could change during the postseason, and some people just rise to the occasion. But regression peaks its head at some bad times on occasion, and I think there's going to be some 3-point regression for Miami in the finals. I think this goes. I don't want to count the Heat out, but I'm about to. I think Denver in 5.
I knew you were going to say 5.
I think
I
Denver
felt
in
it.
5. I mean, I know I just, before this contradicts like the team of destiny thing, but like they're just not going to lose at home. If Denver loses at home, I'd be shocked. And then I'm certain they don't lose twice at home. And I think they could steal one of Miami as well. So I'll go Denver in 5. Good series, good story for the Heat, but I think the show ends here.
Last one on hoops for me. So everyone knows JimmyButler is something that a lot of people say. I've come up with 2 players on Denver here. Okay. Moose really likes one of them, and he really shows a lot of disdain towards the other one that I came up with. So I've got Jamal Murray, and I've got Nikola Jokic.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, the Jamal Murray definitely works.
Right? Jamal Murray is good. I'm really proud of that one.
That's
really
the one
proud
I
of that
like.
one.
Yes.
The Jokic one probably needs some fine tuning. But like I appreciate that, like the dad humor of it all. Like that is like right up my alley. So we could work on it and come back better for by when they close it out for game 5,
Done.
All right, let's get into a little bit of baseball because you've got Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS playbook with yourself and John and Pemba at 5:00. And James, what has been successful? Like your approach, DFS approach, like what has been successful for you early on this year?
I've really honed in on pitching has been brutal this year, to be honest. And I think it has a lot to do with, just the rule changes. Some people are taking longer to adapt to everything. The shift is obviously a big factor. So really honing in on offenses and stacks have been, I think, the go-to stack. Like, for example, the Dodgers get Jake Irvin tonight, and Jake Irvin has struggled mightily against left-handed bats this year. We know the Dodgers have, one of the premier left-handed bats. And there's peripheral stats for Jake Irvin that suggests he's been bad against righties as well. And we know the Dodgers have a boatload of righties. So I think when you're taking a look at DFS, surface numbers are great. And when you're taking a look at stacks, like, oh, this guy's pitched well. Well, like, maybe he has on the surface, but peripherally, when you're talking about DFS, there's going to be regression coming in a positive and negative way. So like Jake Irvin has positive or negative regression coming against right-handed bats, Mookie Betts, WD Smith, the top of the Dodgers lineup, JD Martinez, like the list goes on. That would be something that I've really found to really like just make my approach on DFS really strong this year. Is just I wasn't really looking into peripheral stats as much as I was, and when guys are due for regression versus when they're pitching to their numbers, and that's really helped me fine tune my processes.
So how are you playing a team like the Texas Rangers, averaging the most runs per game in Major League Baseball? Corey Seager's back and he's mashing. He's on a 6-game hitting streak, and they got a pair of home runs over the last 4 games. And then a night like today, they get the Tigers and they get the kid Vito, who he's fine. He's nothing special. How would you handle a team like Texas?
I mean, you just have to look at, first off, usually like if you're talking like from a DFS standpoint, like it's price point. Texas, because they are so strong, they're priced crazy. 5K plus for Simeon, Seager, Adolis Garcia. Josh Jung has been on a very strong.
What is Josh Jung at right now in his DFS price?
He was 49 yesterday. They're not on the main slate today, so I don't have it in front of me. But he was 4,900. He's been between 4,700 to 4,900 pretty much all week. And Simeon reached 6K yesterday. Yeah. Seager 5,700. Like they're not cheap. Yeah. So like if you're gonna play Texas, let's say they were on the main slate, you would just find a lower owned stack to pair with them, or you're going to use a pitcher that's, cheap, like Brian Bayo of Boston, who gets Cincinnati a bottom 10 offense against right-handed pitching this year. Bayo has 17 DK points in 5 straight games. So like using Texas, who I would stack up and down their lineup because again, they hit right-handed pitching. That's their better split. Simeon's better from the right side against right-handed pitching. Adolis Garcia is actually a reverse splits hitter. Seager, as you mentioned, 413 WOBA this year. Nathaniel Lowe, we don't call him Nate anymore. We call him Nathaniel. 350. The name change last year was a while, like right in the middle of the year. Like I want to be called Nathaniel. I made sure to never call him Nate again after hearing that. 358 WOBA for Nathaniel this year against right-handed pitching. So I would stack Texas, but you just have to find that low price stack, such as like the Minnesota Twins, who I fawn over all the time. I am a diehard Minnesota, and that's because I want them to stay healthy. Like they have all this awesome young talent that just needs to stay healthy.
Wouldn't you love to see Byron Buxton actually be able to play 150 games?
I mean, give us 130.
I know. You know what? I asked for way too much. My apologies. That's on me. I owe everybody a lap. I asked for way too much in one.
Yeah, I mean, like, so that would be like how I would get Texas. Because again, you could play 1 through 6 if you wanted to, because even Jonah Heim matches right-handed pitching.
Let me just throw one more in there. So like the Jose Altuve back in these lineups from a price point, where like in the DFS lineups, where did he start? Like, because I mean, a 7-game hitting streak, you had no idea what he was going to do. He went 0 for 4, I think, in his first game back.
Yep. He started at 5K, so he was very expensive off the rip. He's still very expensive. And like on today's slate where they get Joe Ryan, I know he's like on this hit streak and he's been great. That's actually a situation I'd probably just stay away from because Joe Ryan's been so good. And he has struggled a little bit lately, but Joe Ryan's been incredible limiting damage. Like there's been a lot of traffic for Joe Ryan, but nothing follows. Like he's just stranding runners left and right. So yeah, Altuve, you know, he looks pretty healthy again, but 5,200 against Joe Ryan is a no-go for me today.
James, is there been a player or players that you've learned a lesson on early that you liked that you're just kind of fading and avoiding?
Trey Turner.
Captain America.
Trey Turner. Yeah. So I tweeted the other day. I said, Trey Turner went from being Captain America to being a 0. What happened? And then he homered that day. So first off, I know he read my tweet. So shout out to you, Trey, for seeing that. And
you're like, what up, Trey?
I was 100% all in on Trey Turner this year. I took him number 1 in FSGA overall this year. Obviously, you know, looking back on that is not the best decision, especially when outfield was kind of like not the deepest position and Ronald Acuna exists in the world. So like I could have went there. But like in DFS, Trey Turner does not get discounted. He's 5,300 going against Kodai Senga today. He's been 5K. I mean, just looking at the price, all but 2 times this year.
Wow.
And he's just not hitting. He has a sub 700 OPS. We're not stealing a lot of bases, mainly because he's not getting on base. But I'd say number 1 without like not even close. There's not even like a tier. It's Trey Turner because I'm so heavily invested in Trey Turner. And I was early on in DFS. And then I saw my bankroll disappear. Thanks, Trey Turner.
Is Shane McClanahan the most expensive pitcher on the slate today?
He sure is. Yeah.
Right?
He sure is. Yep. Now the Cy Young favorite. There's wind blowing in and a little wind blowing in Wrigley, which is always not a lot, but like always, obviously, you know, I actually like that game is 8.5. I saw the over under on that game, and Death taxes Kyle Hendricks at home, at least to pitch well. That's been like his MO his whole career. He has like a 3 ERA at home. I couldn't believe, like, I know the Rays offense is obviously like as good as it gets.
They got stymied yesterday. Stroman looked amazing.
They did. Stroman, you know what? That's what Stroman does. Like Stroman is probably the most disrespected pitcher in recent memory. Like he's
got
so
3
good.
of their last 4 wins for the Cubs during this terrible stretch. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just ground ball. I mean, the ground ball rate for Marcus Stroman is impressive. And when anyone hits in the air off him, I'm shocked. But I don't know, McClanahan versus Hendricks could be a little bit of a pitcher's duel in Wrigley with up to 10 mile per hour winds there.
Well, I'll give you a betting play on that one that I'm going to give out on MLB Network later. So I'm going with the Rays on the money line, and I'm going to buy the game total. I'm going to make it go up to 9.5. So we're going to go Rays money line under 9.5, get you to plus 140 on BetMGM.
Ooh,
That's going to be one of my top plays.
I like that. I like that.
James,
I like the under 8.5. So like
Right. So that's why I'm buying myself the extra run or run and a half, depending on what site you're on. Yeah.
Right.
James, when you look around the baseball right now, you've gotten teams, a lot of teams are, not all that far off. I mean, you don't have a lot of great teams like, the Rays are, but there aren't also this number of god-awful teams, Oakland Athletics obviously being one of them. Who do you think here from a team perspective, do you think has the earmarks of a team that you think could have as we're past Memorial Day, as an opportunity to have a really good summer?
I don't want to say it, but I'll say Houston. Just getting fully healthy. Like Houston fully healthy. They're in second behind Texas. They're getting healthy. They haven't been really good offensively, and they're still 9 games over 500 with a 50 run differential. And I think that's in large part due to the top end of their pitching staff is just incredibly dominant. I mean, Frambar is the quality start machine. Christian Javier stopped walking people. Like they're really, really good. Like a sneaky, I have like this again. I'll go back to the Twins. Like I've loved what they've done over the last year and a half. Last year at the trade deadline, Joe Ryan has turned into a bona fide ace. Pablo Lopez, like the top half of that rotation is really, really good. If Buxton, Kirilloff, Royce Lewis can just stay healthy, Correa ever comes back to, even like 75% of what he's been in years past, like they could be a really sneaky team in the AL just because and then they have a guy throwing 600 miles an hour closing games. Like they have the makings of a really sneaky American League team, but it's Minnesota just has this, they just can't get past the health thing. Jorge Polanco is out right now. Like he's been oft injured this year. He didn't even start the year with that. Like they just need to stay healthy. They've built the pitching staff. Sonny Gray looks like an ace. They essentially have 3 aces of Sonny Gray, another oft injured player. Like again, theme of the Twins. If they can just stay healthy, they have exactly what you need in the postseason. 3 top end starters. They have a good bullpen, and they have a good lineup when everyone's in. So I think Houston is the chalky answer there. I think they're going to go on a run, but I sneaky suspicion Minnesota could be in it for the long haul.
How would you handicap the AL East? Yankees are getting hot right now. Winners of 7 of the last 10. Judge is back looking judgy in again, but the Rays and Orioles are ahead of them.
Boy, what a game for what a game for Aaron Judge last. I'm a Yankees fan, so like
I'm with you. I feel bad Bader getting hurt and having an
Yes.
MRI today.
Yeah,
I mean, because
we'll
he's
see how that
always
plays out.
hurt. He's great, but I agree about Judge. I mean, Judge is he's like King Kong.
I'm still very bitter about the Bader trade, truth be told, because I mean, look at the Yankees pitching staff this year and then put Jordan Montgomery in the middle of that. And I think that's something that's needed right now, especially with the injury issues that we've had. But anyways, I think Tampa is the team to beat. Now, what are they going to do with their pitching? They've already lost 3 of their top starters for the year. We'll see how long emphasis on Glass lasts for the rest of the year. Baltimore's obviously very good. The Yankees can be very good, but what is the deal with Carlos Rodon? They paid him all this money. Is his back ever going to heal? TBD there. I think, with a healthy Stanton, it makes the lineup a little deeper. LeMahieu and Willie Calhoun hitting in the middle of their lineup isn't very scary for many teams. So, I still favor Tampa and Baltimore over, the Yankees, who surprisingly, third best bullpen ERA in the league, despite not really having a closer, because Clay Holmes is not a closer and hasn't really been for a year since the All-Star break last year. So, still Tampa and Baltimore, I think, cream of the crop. But, if the Yankees get healthy, they could go on. I mean, because Tampa's injuries for the staff, they're not coming back. The Yankees have guys that are coming back. At least we think, right? We think Stan's on his rehab. We think Rodon's coming back. So,
yeah,
I still think the 2 teams in first and second are the better of the 2, but, I'm not going to count our Yankees out here.
James, last one for me would be this. Who do you put on right now? I know we're a ways away from the MLB trade deadline, but who do you put on the championship level? How many teams do you think can win a World Series this year?
Dodgers, Rays, Astros, Braves. 4?
4.
4.
So even with Rodon, if they get Rodon back and you have Cole,
4.5. 4.5 for the Yankees. 4.5. 4.5. We'll go 4.5.
It didn't take me long to convince you, James, about the Yankees.
4.5. I know. Well, like Nestor hasn't been Nestor of last year.
No,
so,
he is
like,
not.
We need yes, Cole, Rodon, Nestor going into a postseason is nice.
Yeah. I still feel like the other team I would add in that one, and maybe I'm crazy, is I think the Phillies are going to figure it out. And maybe I'm crazy. I feel like they can figure it out.
In theory, they should
like Nolan Wheeler, right? Like that they can't be this for the whole season, can they?
I picked in my fantasy alarm bold predictions. I picked Nola to win the Cy Young in the NL.
So
like,
by the way,
I
had him and Spencer Strider were my two guys, so I hit one so far.
Yeah, I mean, as this conversation has gone on, like I've been heavily invested in Philly all year. Trey Turner, I thought my first pick, I thought he was going to be in the MVP. I thought Philly was the trajectory signing.
Nick
Turner.
Castellanos is batting 300 right now.
Yeah, and he, the power was sapped from him last year, and it's slowly coming back. You get Harper into. I don't disagree. I think ultimately it's just the offense is not going to be an issue long term. I think their staff. I mean, Ranger Suarez has been a 0 since coming back. He was good, very good a couple of years ago. So I think they need to figure out the pitching, and the offense is going to be fine long term. I mean, Schwarber can't hit 100, obviously. Like he's hitting 150.
Yeah, I mean, he's under 200 exactly. Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
One more sneaky one for me. A lot of times we talk about like fade insert name of player, right? Like fade Corbin was a really big thing for a while. It appears he kind of figured out his pitching ways. Do you have a pitcher or two that the minute they're pitching, you go, all right, he's pitching today. Let me get these guys in.
I mean, as of recent, I was joking in the Fantasy Alarm Discord yesterday. Colorado Rockies continue to throw out Carl Kaufman every 5th day.
Oh yeah,
and it has been a DFS gold mine. So, or just whatever you want against Carl Kaufman. Doesn't get righties out, doesn't get lefties out. Had a 5+ ERA at AAA before the call up. So it was every Corbin Day. I would start our podcast and live streams off with Happy Patrick Corbin Day.
Yep.
And now we can't because he actually has kind of, had some positive regression his way. But right now, truthfully, just off the top of my head, it's been Carl Kaufman every 5th day. I can't wait. You know what? Colorado, he's been really good. Why don't you keep him up for a couple more starts?
Yeah, keep him out there for us. Thank you.
Make sure to check out James and John on Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS Playbook at 5:00 Eastern time. James, fantastic. We appreciate it. Tell you, your son's adorable. That's fantastic. Earlier.
Thank you.
Actually, next time we have you on, can we have Orion instead of you? No, I'm just kidding.
He could talk if you want trucks or Paw Patrol or any Blippy soundtrack. Those are the 3 things he's got better than anyone else.
So he will be there on the double.
If you're any of those. Yes, he will absolutely be there on the double. He probably heard you say it, and he's probably like, who's saying that?
James, you're awesome, man. We appreciate the time. All right. Good luck with all your plays today. All right.
We'll talk to you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it for having me.
Who joins us. I miss Paw Patrol. It was great.
Paw Patrol, be there on the double. That's it.
That's all you got? The Paw Patrol movie was great when it was on Paramount. Watch that like 4 or 5 times with the kids.
Your kids are a little younger than mine.
Yes, correct.
Like I'm at a Paw Patrol you also have to remember that because Alex is 3.5 years younger than Austin. I feel like Alex almost got robbed of some of the youth because Austin was already watching some of the older kids stuff. So Alex just started watching that with him. So like sometimes he didn't watch all the
I know.
Really,
well,
really
that's what's happened. That's what's happened.
Gregory. Right?
Yeah. He has not watched everything that Jackson and Paul watch because he's the oldest boy and they're all watching other stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
He's kind of quickly went through that transition.
Yeah.
We'll come back. We got to get into a couple things. DeAndre Hopkins. There seems to be 2 teams that are battling for DeAndre Hopkins. Where do you think D-Hop lands? And What do you think his fantasy impact will get into? The 76ers have got themselves a new head coach. We'll get into that with Nick Nurse. We'll do that as Nurse replaces Doc.
And 2 really good stories in baseball yesterday, too, that we should get to.
Mike Soroka back.
Yes, Liam Hendricks.
Yes, and Liam Hendricks back.
Yes.
We'll get into that. We'll do that next. It's Moose and Keith. He's Keith Arizari. I'm Mark Malusis. Moose and Keith right here on the Better Sports Network.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.
The word genius is there. Bob Glauber, it describes him. Bob, so when's the last time that Twitter defeated you? Because I've been defeated by Twitter today.
I'll tell you how Twitter defeated me one time. I had the mistaken impression that the year that Troy Polamalu won the Defensive Player of the Year, it looked like it was going to go to Clay Matthews Jr., and I tweeted it. And there was a guy on the media bus. He was like, oh, yeah, he's got it, a guy I trust. I won't tell you who it was, but his initials are Mike Garafalo. So I went with it. Got a DM from Rich Eisen, NFL Network. He goes, you sure about that? I go, oh, man. Oh, I just got this wave. Because, like, accuracy to me is really important.
Yeah.
So I'm literally on the media bus. We're just getting back from media day. We are slipping and sliding in Dallas. It's snowing. I get off the bus. I open my laptop. I'm hunched over. And I just, like, literally people are passing me. Bob, what's wrong? And it was Polamalu. And Adam Schefter had retweeted me. Trey Wingo had retweeted me. I'm like, oh, I'm dead.
So when it's Polamalu, then how do you handle that? Like, what was the subsequent tweet
I think
afterward?
I said, got some bad Twitter info. I didn't put Garafalo's name on there. I had to
10 years later, you can out him. I like that. Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't mind that. He knows the stories. So.
Yeah.
He actually said to me, hey, Bob, I think you might have jumped the gun on that. I was like, oh, crap. There we go.
Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Would Dion bench Shedeur?
I don't think he would.
Like, how bad would it have to be? Because we've seen horrendous quarterback play from this Colorado team for the last, 5 years? JT Shroud, Brandon Lewis, just terrible quarterback play. Like, they were 131st, which is dead last in pass EPA per play. Obviously, it will be better, but how bad does it have to be for him to bench his own son? Like, I'm not sure he will ever either, like, especially with the attitude that he came in with.
If they don't get Rashada, who do they bench him for this year anyway? I don't know that there's another answer on that roster that you go to. They don't really have a guy behind him, so I don't even know if we would know the answer to that until the next year, assuming that, he doesn't declare for the draft, he returns, they bring somebody else that's competent and behind him.
If they're going to do this the Lincoln Riley way, next year would be the class to bring somebody in. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a third-year player, so he's going to play 2023. I don't think he's declaring for the 2024 NFL draft, so he's going to play in 2024 and then declare for the 2025 NFL draft. And let's remember this, he hasn't had a full recruiting cycle at Colorado. He will have that next recruiting cycle, so maybe he could get one of these class of 2024 quarterbacks there to come to Colorado.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Better Sports Network.
Make sure to check out Fantasy Alarm. They've got a great number of great pieces out there on their site each and every day. I mean, their golf needs, WNBA needs, MLB DFS needs. They've also got best bets in Major League Baseball and picks each and every day. So make sure to check out our friends over at Fantasy Alarm. They're great. Get all pro access to the Fantasy Alarm for their award-winning DFS playbook, covering 10 different sports, fantasy football, NFL betting, plus tools, podcasts, and all kinds of chat. For a limited time, get all this for 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. Start your free trial today. Match up to $100 using promo code FANTASYALARM at fantasyalarm.com/underdog as well. Love them. Great site. I mean, you can catch up, get great information, great opinions. And honestly, you can use all that information, helps you with daily fantasy and helps you with what we do, information is king. And you're looking for a site that gives you all the necessary information you're looking for. There's no spot better than Fantasy Alarm.
So I'm going to give credit to Matt Stryker on this one. Yesterday, MLB Network, we were doing Better's Eye, and we were on the network. We did an hour show yesterday. And one of the producers had said, hey, just at the beginning of the show, let's do something where in case, you're new to our program, here's what you get from us kind of thing, right? So Stryker turned to the camera and said that in an era where we have so much information out there, we'd be ignorant to not look at all the information. Listen, Fantasy Alarm is amazing. There are so many sites out there, so many ways for you to find information. Like Fantasy Alarm, one of the things I like about Fantasy Alarm is that it does gear you more towards the fantasy aspect, like DFS lineup, your yearly lineup, all that kind of stuff. But all that information that you get from that, like I use DFS info constantly when I'm trying to figure out, would this be a player that I want to give out as a player prop, right? So like Corey Seager, I just want to double back to Corey Seager because we were talking to James about this, right? Corey Seager is a correlate to your gambling needs, right? So how about Corey Seager? BetMGM is the book we use for MLB Network for Bettor's Eye. Over 1.5 total bases is -110. Again, if you're new to total bases, single, double, triple, home run, those are the things that count for bases. Seager is on a 6-game hitting streak, 2 or more bases in 4 consecutive games, 2 home runs in his last 4. At -110, there's good value to be had there. He's going up against a pitcher who's nothing special in Fido. He's in an offensive attack, essentially, where they score 6-7 runs in every single game. There are options to be had with a guy like Corey Seager.
Yeah, love it. I mean, yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's what I like is everything's kind of correlated, brought it to me when you look at a site like Fantasy Alarm, which makes it interesting, and they've got great opinions. So make sure to check it out, and tremendous discount. Use it Alarm 50. And good point about Stryker and making sure to use all that necessary and proper information as well. A couple of things that we haven't hit upon as of yet that we need to. Let's continue with the baseball theme. Number one, I mean, just amazing scene to see Liam Hendriks back in a major league uniform, and back again with the Chicago White Sox, and also very, very good. Be obviously coming back from cancer, and seeing Soroka back in the rotation last night for the Atlanta Braves as well.
Both of these guys, great stories. You got the 2-time Achilles surgeries for Soroka, and he looked good. 6 innings. I mean, he took the loss to the Oakland Athletics, but for Liam Hendriks, that C word, cancer, is scary for all of us. And I think, I know that my family has been very touched by, unfortunately, that disease. And we lost my mother-in-law from it. And it is a very scary thing. Doesn't matter whether you are peak fitness, top athlete in the world, a guy like Liam Hendriks, or you are out of shape or like, doesn't matter anything. That disease, unfortunately, could hit you. And the fact that Liam Hendriks, found out he had cancer, went through all of his treatments, is cancer-free, has been able to get back out on the diamond. He is an inspiration and will continue to be an inspiration for so many, not just athletes, just people out there in general. When you're looking for just something to lift you up, because I mean, there are going to be people out there that are sitting in their hospital beds and they're going through chemo and they're going through radiation and they're going through all their treatments and experimental treatments and whatnot that are losing hope. I would hope, for lack of a better way to say it, that someone like Liam Hendriks will give you hope and will give you something to look at. And you can say, all right, if Liam can do it, he could stay strong, I could do this too. And I don't know. I get stumbled over my words sometimes with this because of how close this has been to our family. I was definitely touched to watch Liam pitch yesterday. It was an emotional thing for him and his family and for that organization as well. But I think for everyone watching. Well said.
And echo those sentiments. What about seeing Soroka back for the Braves?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I got emotional over that.
No, you did not. But I mean, I think
it was cool. It was great. I mean, for a guy to tear his Achilles twice, I mean, there was a realistic chance that he was never going to pitch again.
Yeah, and to now see him back in a Braves team that listen, the Mets get a series going back with the Philadelphia Phillies and begin a series tonight with the Philadelphia Phillies out at Citi Field. They're 500. The Braves are just, 10 games over the 500 mark. They haven't run away with anything. The Miami Marlins have hung in there. They're 28-26. You've got a lot of decidedly average baseball teams up until this point in time. We'll see exactly who starts to separate themselves as the summer months do roll along, as we have Memorial Day in our rearview mirror here. But the Atlanta Braves are clearly a team that we've talked about Acuna, being the MVP of the National League, getting a guy, and we'll see exactly what he is. Yeah, different levels of emotion. And certainly when you have someone that and you mentioned your mother-in-law passed away from lymphoma, and to see Liam Hendricks now back, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and go through all of that and be back for the Chicago White Sox, it's just fantastic. It really is. So,
yeah,
those are amazing stories. It really is. And to see him be able to do that, unbelievable. So a couple interesting stories when you look at Major League Baseball from last night. Now let's go over to a little bit of NFL chatter, because it looks like DeAndre Hopkins, the two teams that are in heated chase for the former Arizona Cardinals wide receiver, one being Kansas City, the other team being Buffalo. Corey and I talked about it yesterday. Where do you think the best spot is for DeAndre Hopkins? And what do you think DeAndre Hopkins is as a fantasy player, fantasy wideout this stage of his career?
Kansas City football! Yeah, it's the Chiefs, man. Like, you go to Kansas City, you're probably winning a Super Bowl. All right. And DeAndre Hopkins is not what he was 3-4 years ago. He's not a number one target anymore, but he still has gas left in the tank. I don't know if I want him necessarily for fantasy football. I mean, he might be a rotational guy that I could throw into a lineup, but I am all in on the Chiefs finding a way to get hit. My goodness. Kelsey, him, the running game is taking a step forward. Offensive line is good. Yes, Kansas City Chiefs. Let's go.
Yeah, but did we not learn last year that Mahomes can win without?
Right, but how much is Hopkins? You think Hopkins is going to cost a lot of money?
I don't know what he's going to cost. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs don't have a ton of salary cap space. You're not going to get him for a dime. I mean, he's going to cost you something. So if you're DeAndre Hopkins at this stage, he had 64 catches, over 700 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns last year. Yeah, he's not the same player he was. So, but did I not learn with Kansas City? I know Kelsey's unbelievable, right? So he's got that at tight end. He didn't win with a who's who at the wide receiver spot last year. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster on a short-term deal. He's now gone. Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Mecole Hardman. Yeah. He's now a New York Jet. Sky Moore. Expectations are Sky Moore for year 2. But, we saw
Kadarius
some final. I mean, right. So if you throw in DeAndre, do you really necessarily need to spend the money on DeAndre Hopkins? If I'm Kansas City, I'm not telling you that he can't help.
Right.
Because I'm not saying that DeAndre Hopkins is shot or washed. But as you mentioned, I don't think he's the same player. Plus, I also have a quarterback that can make average wide receivers look really, really good. And we saw that last year for the Kansas City Chiefs as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid won yet another Super Bowl, and Tyreek Hill was a member of the Miami Dolphins.
All right, but if you're DeAndre Hopkins, so I understand your take from the Chiefs side of it, right? What's the thing that's eluding DeAndre Hopkins in his Pro Bowl, All-Pro career?
Yeah, winning a Super Bowl.
Right? And that's why I think whether it's pundits talking about it or whether it's really the NFL teams, as in the Bills and the Chiefs discussing it, that's why if you're DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he has made a lot of money in his career. He's a pretty well-spoken guy, too. I think he could do television and stuff like that after his career if he so desires, right? He could be a part of NFL things going on. That being said, the thing that's eluding him is a Super Bowl. So if I were DeAndre Hopkins, I'm looking around at all of the teams, and I'm willing to take, I'm not saying league minimum, but I'm taking a lot less money to go to a team to win, right? And so Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Niners, Like, I'm looking, where can I get to the Super Bowl? What team gives me the best chance to get to a conference championship?
All right, but if I'm
there on.
DeAndre Hopkins, then is the team that, and I don't know if there's an NFC. Why would you go to an AFC team with how tricky that road
I don't think
is?
you have to. No, I don't think you have to. I'm just saying you gave me Bills and Chiefs, so I would pick Chiefs.
Well, those
over
are
that.
reportedly
But,
the two teams that are hot and heavy over DeAndre Hopkins.
If I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I'm looking at the Eagles, the Niners, and the Cowboys. Those are the 3 teams I'd want to go to. Those are the 3. That's it. Let me win the NFC. You go to if he's a Cowboy and he's the number 2 option behind CeeDee Lamb, it all obviously means you believe in Dak Prescott. And I know there are people that don't believe in Dak. I like that a lot. If you're in Philadelphia with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and DeAndre Hopkins and Dallas Goedert, now your numbers might be a little bit lower. That's gonna be a hard offense to stop.
Yeah, that would correct. That would be a very difficult. Like I'd want to go if I could to an NFC team. If it's going to be an AFC team, I would agree with you. I'd rather go to Kansas City because Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean the Bills make some sense too, right? I mean they do.
Yeah, they do. The problem with Buffalo is they can't run the ball. And
Yeah.
I'm a little bit concerned about their defense
Me too.
and what we saw in their lack of pass rush. I also don't love hearing the fact that, well, if it wasn't snowing out, but it was.
Yeah.
And you ended up losing the game and you're the team that's playing there. So, I mean, like that is what it is. So Buffalo's become, for a team that plays outdoor in the cold weather, I got to be honest with you, like they've almost become like a little soft. Instead of like playing to their environment, like they've become an NFL team where, they want to air it out. They can't run the football. They don't really win at the point of attack. And defensively, they're not manhandling you as well. Like it's kind of a strange team. It's almost like they play like an indoor Atlanta Falcons type of football as compared to playing, in upstate New York, in Western New York, where, it's, past November, it's like 5 degrees outside. Like it's a little strange when you look at the Buffalo Bills, where they're the team complaining about the weather conditions when they took on the Cincinnati Bengals. And listen, I just think it's a very, very loaded AFC. I agree with you. Like he would help the Buffalo Bills, but if I'm Hopkins and the money's relatively around the same number, I'd probably want to side with Mahomes and the Chiefs. My whole point about Kansas City was that I don't know if they necessarily need Patrick Mahomes to get need DeAndre Hopkins. Patrick Mahomes makes everyone around him better.
Let me ask you a question, and I don't remember. Maybe you do. Hopkins and Watson, did they have a good relationship in Houston?
I thought they did, yeah.
I think they did too, right? Does Cleveland work?
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
Maybe.
Like, is that another one? I mean,
but that's where I'd have to go to the Browns, where I'm making money.
Right. Well, all right. So
like if I'm going to a team to chase a ring, like the Browns are not that team.
Although they were a top 10 defense last year, you'd have, if you believe Watson can be Deshaun Watson again, you'd have a top 7 QB. You've got one of the 5 best running backs in the NFL in Nick Chubb. You have an above average offensive line. And then you still have Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins. Like that's a pretty impressive team then.
That is, but it's all, I think your first point, I don't know what Deshaun Watson is.
Exactly. So that would be the problem. Yeah.
Like the problem would be, and I could tell you, well, I wholeheartedly believe, are you willing to bank on it that Watson is going to be that guy? Because Keith, he looks so bad last year.
Really bad.
Like really bad. Yeah. And with it, even with the playing time, like he looked really, really rusty and really, really bad. Like a guy that was like a shell of the player he was with the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Like that would be the concern I'd have. But it'd be interesting. Do you think Hopkins is, if I had to ask you next year, fantasy football, I know it depends on where he lands.
Yep.
Where do you think the high water mark of where he could be? Top 25, top 30 receiver in the NFL? Like, what do you think he is?
I think you can get 70 catches, 950 to 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I mean, I think that is, depending on the size of your league, he could end up as a low-end wide receiver 2 on your team.
Okay. And you'd be okay with it?
Yeah, I think so. But again, you're right, though. But it does depend on because like let's say he ended up in Philadelphia.
He's the number 3 wideout.
He's the number 3 wide receiver. How fantasy relevant is he?
Yeah, he's not going to be fantasy relevant at all.
No.
Not
He's
to
a
that
bye-week
extent.
filler for
yeah,
you,
or if an injury happens to the top two receivers.
Sure.
That's
Even in
what it would
San
be.
Francisco, he'd be the third or fourth mouth to feed there.
You mentioned Philadelphia. The 76ers switch it over from the NFL to the association because they've got a new head coach. Obviously, Doc Rivers out after that embarrassing Game 7 performance for the 76ers. Still concerns or questions about whether or not James Harden is going to be back in Philadelphia. A lot of people believe he's going to be in Houston and playing with the Rockets, and he's going to go out there and get paid. But Nick Nurse is now going to be the Philadelphia 76ers head coach. I think it's a good hire. I mean, I do. I think Nick Nurse is a good basketball coach. 5 years in Toronto, won an NBA title with Kawhi Leonard, was coach of the year as well. They talked about they need to do different voice. I think you don't have to worry about tactically the Philadelphia 76ers late in games. Now he's going to be coaching Joel Embiid, the reigning MVP. They've got to make some roster changes to that team, especially if Harden is indeed gone, and find that next guy that's going to be the secondary piece behind Joel Embiid. But when we look at the coaching carousel in the NBA, there's a lot of similar names that are out there. I think the Philadelphia 76ers got themselves a really good head coach in Nick Nurse.
Yeah, and all the doc to nurse jokes happen.
Yes.
Enough. And every time I hear Nick Nurse, by the way, I always think of Nick Durst, our buddy who works for the network here, and I'm Right podcast. I always do. I think Nick Nurse was the guy. And I think that there were a few teams that wanted him. And the Philadelphia Sixers are the best option there. Assuming Embiid stays, assuming Tyrese Maxey becomes maybe the really number two, and you've routinely said that you believe he's the second best player on that team anyway.
Yeah.
And if Harden's gone, yes, that is a big blow, but it's going to come to some of the other guys picking it up. And then, you look at the free agent market, there are names out there, right? I'm not saying you want a Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving is going to be out there. I'm not saying that Chris Middleton's definitely going to be available, but Chris Middleton is a multi-time All-Star. He would fit really well there too. Nice little outside shooter.
Yeah, I think there's other ways that you need to go. I just think you have to look at what you as an organization and put the emotions aside, because there's the connection with the general manager and Harden dating back to Houston.
Yes.
Put the emotions aside and look at James Harden realistically of what he is now as a player and how you can overcome that Game 7 performance and get Embiid into the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
That's got to be the goal.
Yep.
Keith, great show, as always.
No, you're the best.
Fantastic show. Thanks for everybody in our chat session. Thanks for being locked in. Enjoy your Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 right here on the Better Sports Network.
Later.